To build anything that truly lasts, it takes time.
Today, viewers, India has delivered a strong, unambiguous snub to China on a matter that touches both faith and geopolitics, the succession of the 14th Dalai Lama. As China tries to exert control over who gets to be the next spiritual head of Tibetan Buddhism, India has made it clear that this decision rests only with the Dalai Lama and his institution. The straightforward statement made by Union Minister Kiran Rijiju pushes back against Beijing's meddling and reaffirms India's stand on religious freedom and Tibetan autonomy. Listen in to what Union Minister Kiran Rijiju said while making India's position on Dalai Lama succession absolutely clear.
One of the important events that you're going to be participating in is in Dhamshala. Dalai Lama, is going to complete his 90 years. It's a birthday celebration. You will be going there as a representative of Government of India. But China also says that incarnation has to be approved by Beijing. How do you react to that?
I am going to attend the 90th birth anniversary of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. But I'm not going to say anything on behalf of the government on the reincarnation issue. But as a follower, as a believer, as a person who is devoted to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I would say that the institutions in place and His Holiness Dalai Lama himself will best tell the intention of His Holiness how next incarnation of the 15th Dalai Lama should happen. So we should leave it to His Holiness Dalai Lama and the institution.
And rattled by India's strong message on Dalai Lama's succession, China is attempting to browbeat and warning, commenting on Union Minister Kiran Rijiju's assertion that only Dalai Lama has the right to decide his successor. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson has said, and I quote, India should stay away from 14th Dalai Lama. India must honor its commitments to Tibet. India must exercise caution in words and action. Stop interfering in China's internal affairs. It also says India must avoid impact on development of ties. So that's the latest update coming in, a clear warning in a way that China has now tried to give, completely rattled by India's strong message on Dalai Lama's succession. This is what China is now trying to do, trying to lecture India on meddling. Let's go across to my colleague Rishabh joining us on the broadcast for more on this. Rishabh, so in a way this was expected, isn't it? Because India had, not really minced any words when it said that it's only going to be Dalai Lama who will be deciding as to who his successor should be.
Well, there are two things here. If you hear Kiran Rijiju's statement, he is very clear that this is not India's statement. This is his personal statement. He is speaking in capacity of a follower, as a follower of Dalai Lama, and that is not an India statement. The statement hasn't come in from External Affairs Ministry or Government of India for that matter. But the reaction that has come in from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China, in a way, is trying to jump the gun. For example, when India makes a statement, there is a statement that is officially notarized by the Government of India. The statement that came in from Kiran Rijiju was him being a Buddhist, be follower of Dalai Lama, and he made it very clear at the beginning of the statement that this is, I'm not speaking on behalf of Government of India, I'm speaking in my personal capacity as a follower of Dalai Lama. So the statement that is coming from China is something A, misplaced, and B, in a way lecturing, India is something that is uncalled for, because there hasn't been any such statement that challenges the sovereignty of China till now. India do agree to the one China policy, and that is something that has been India's, particular stand for years now.
All right. Thank you, Rishabh, for the moment for joining us with your inputs on that story. Now, viewers, the Dalai Lama isn't just a spiritual leader, he is the symbolic head of the Tibetan struggle, the global face of Buddhist peace, and a Nobel laureate who has been living in exile in India since 1959. The current Dalai Lama, the 14th in his lineage, is 89 years old, and the world is now looking at the future. Who will succeed him? In Tibetan Buddhism, succession is not appointed. It is believed to be a rebirth or reincarnation. The next Dalai Lama is identified through spiritual signs, rituals, and processes conducted by the Dalai Lama's own trust, which is called the Gaden Phodrang Institution. But China wants to control that process. Chinese Communist Party says it will choose the next Dalai Lama, that he must be born inside Tibet, be selected through their golden urn system, and get approval from Beijing. The move is widely seen as an attempt to install a puppet Dalai Lama who will legitimize China's illegal occupation of Tibet and dismantle the exile movement. But India has officially rejected this position. Times Now senior executive editor Madhavdas Gopalakrishnan spoke to Penpa Tsering, who is the head of Tibetan government in exile. He tore into China and slammed its attempt to interfere in the succession planning. Listen in.
With the recent announcements of the Dalai Lama that he would indeed have a reincarnation and the response coming in from China, joining us to discuss all of this is Penpa Tsering, who is the head of the Tibetan government in exile. Thank you so much for speaking to us here at Times Now, sir. And as far as the recent announcement of Dalai Lama and the response from China is concerned, how are you looking at all of these developments? Because this is being seen as a historic announcement when it comes to the succession of the Dalai Lama on his 90th birthday.
The Chinese government will keep saying what they want to say. They don't bother about what the world has to say. They don't bother about the religious freedom of the Tibetan people. They not just occupied our country and blatantly suppressed the Tibetans. And right now, the Chinese government is aiming at the elimination and destruction of Tibetan identity in the form of its language and culture and religion and all that. So it's not a surprise to hear things from the Chinese government. Of course, they have been saying it's a break from the tradition, but when they say it's a break from the tradition, what does that mean? That golden urn needs to be used. But it was something that the Manchus, when they had little influence in Tibet, introduced this in 1793, but it was rarely used, and whenever it was used, it was the selection has through the traditional means have already been done. So there are 3 points the Chinese government is making. One is that they will look for His Holiness reincarnation within China or within Tibet. And for that, His Holiness has always said, I will be born in a free world. Because when China, invites His Holiness to visit China and Tibet, His Holiness, their precondition is that His Holiness should stay back. And His Holiness has always been saying that if I get opportunity to go to China or Tibet, I will go, but I will not live there because there is no freedom there. So also the Chinese government says, when Chinese government says that they will choose for the next Dalai Lama within Tibet or China, that is the reason why His Holiness says he will be born in a free world. And in the case of using the golden urn, there have been 8 Dalai Lamas even before the golden urn. So what about those Dalai Lamas? Are they not Dalai Lamas just because Chinese government introduced golden urn for their political benefit? But even the Qings were Buddhists in a way. But the present government is a communist government that does not believe in any religion. So for that matter, I don't think they can fool the international community or the domestic audience within the country. And the Tibetans will definitely not accept any choice of the Chinese government or direct interference by the Chinese government in the selection of the next Dalai Lama, whenever it happens. But I want to make clear that His Holiness has reassured us many times that he will live for more than 2 decades and more. So it's still very early